What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We just wrapped up day 2 of the Monte Carlo Masters. We will recap that day, completing all the qualifiers, and we'll take a look at the rest of our first round picks. Let's get started. And I just want to give out a quick reminder, in case this is your first time watching one of our videos, we have chapters in the description, so if you're looking for a specific breakdown of a match, you can just click to that match and go right to it. Also, the highlighted green means that the player has already advanced to that round. Our picks are the ones that are not highlighted. So just don't want to have confusion there. If people think like, oh, this person hasn't advanced yet. We do put the scores right next to them, so you guys have that as well, so you can see how they did in the previous round going forward. But we will try to break down, like we have the Monfils and Bublik match as well. We're going to try and break that one down as well. We'll go day by day as these matches become available to us. And I'll give you guys a little bit of like the cliff notes on my breakdown in the next video if we already did it before. So anyways, let's get to our first match. We have Terence Atmane taking on Ethan Quinn. Ethan Quinn getting in as a qualifier. Sorry, Ethan Quinn getting in as a lucky loser. He lost to Comesana today and was able to get in from the withdrawal of Frances Tiafoe. And we remember Tiafoe having that tough three-setter against Tommy Paul. Obviously, his coaching camp deciding that it might be better for him to maybe take this week off and focus on the rest of the clay season. We see that Lerner Tien, Ben Shelton, they're all doing that. And I think it's a very smart idea because you're going to be able to watch some of the game tape, go back, maybe plug some of the holes that you see from your matches in Houston and become a better player when you're going into either Barcelona, Rome, or Madrid. Now, looking at this matchup here, head-to-head, they have not met before. This will be Terence Atmane's first match on clay. Ethan Quinn is 2-1 on the surface, beating Otto Virtanen in the first round of the qualifiers and losing to Comesana 7-5, 6-2 in the second round. He did have a nice win over Marijan in Davis Cup. I believe that was on the clay, and that's his other clay court win. That was a tough three-setter where he had to fight to come back and win the match. So nice win for Ethan Quinn there. He does play okay on the clay. We remember him from last year making a decent run of the French Open. I think he lost to Griekspoor maybe in 5 sets. It was a tough match. He was 11-6 last year on the clay, 2-7 the year before. So a little bit of improvement there. I think we're going to see a little bit more improvement here as well. Let's keep in mind that Ethan Quinn also kind of riding high off that Phoenix Challenger that he won in the middle of March over Marcos Giron. Getting out to Miami, losing to Yuri Lehecka, not a bad win. Yeah, Lehecka ends up making the finals of that tournament. So Quinn able to beat Hurkacz and Ruud on the way there. Atmane, on the other hand, losing in the fourth round to Frances Tiafoe in 3 sets, beating Altmaier, Rinderknecht, and Auger-Aliassime on the way to the fourth round. So no clay court matches here. He is 3-4 on the clay in 2025. And 5-5 in 2024, 26-15 in 2023, but I assume that a lot of those are challenger level matches on the clay. And I think, it's kind of funny because both these guys, Terence Atmane a lefty, but both these guys really like their forehand. So they're both going to be looking for ways to hit to the other's backhand and open the court up and dictate with their forehands. Now, Ethan Quinn, a little bit more familiarity on the surface. He's already played 2 matches. Yes, he lost 1, but Comesana is a seasoned clay courter, so not too bad of a win there for him. I gotta favor Ethan Quinn here to get this match done. And, it's funny because Terence Atmane was supposed to play Frances Tiafoe, right? And we talked about that match. We broke that match down. We picked Tiafoe. And we talked about how this is going to be their 3rd time meeting this year. And you wonder if Tiafoe saw that and maybe that was part. Obviously, he's going to want to develop himself and maybe he's a little bit fatigued from the Houston. But then you see that you're playing the same guy. You've played maybe 25, 30 matches over the year, and 3 of them are going to be against this guy. So maybe you decide hey, I don't know if I really want to play that match again here, it's going to be a trickier match because every time you play someone, you start to get closer and closer to them. But who knows if that was a factor or not. So, anyways, looking at Ethan Quinn here, I'm going to pick him to win. I think he's going to win in 3 sets. I feel like this is going to be like a tricky match here for both guys. I think we're going to see a little bit of the discomfort of moving on the clay surface to start for Terrence Atmane. I mean, he only had 7 matches last year, 10 matches the year before. He likes the hard courts a little bit more, and you can see that. He's played almost 4 times as many matches in his career on the hard courts than he has on the clay. So I think we're going to see him a little bit uncomfortable. Ethan Quinn's probably going to take the first set. I feel like Atman's going to fight. It's going to be a close second, so either he takes it or Quinn wins a tough one like 7-5 or 7-6. And then I think Quinn is able to win in the third set if it gets to it there. So give me Ethan Quinn in 3 sets. Next match is Lehecka taking on Emilio Nava. And no head-to-head here for these guys. And I was wondering, so I was scrolling through the head-to-head. And I saw they do have 2 matches that Nava beat Lehecka. And I was like, why are these not being counted in the head-to-head? It's because they were juniors matches. So yeah, they played in 2019 back in juniors, where Nava was able to beat Lehecka 3-1 in the U.S. Open and 7-6, 4-6, 6-2 in the Australian Open, both in the quarterfinals. So for whatever that is worth, maybe Nava can give him some difficulty here. Lehecka never being able to beat Nava yet. But we're older. They're more experienced. They are completely different players now. This will be Lehecka's first match on the clay, and we remember him. He's coming off that finals appearance against Jannik Sinner. He did have a break in that second set, so a chance to kind of make the match maybe a little bit interesting, but Sinner just too tough for Lehecka, really challenging that Lehecka movement, challenging that Lehecka backhand, and just a little bit too much from Jannik Sinner there, who's able to achieve the Sunshine Double without dropping a single set. Emilio Nava, on the other hand, able to come through qualifying, beating Halys 6-4, 6-4, and David Goffin 6-3, 6-7, 7-6. And impressive for Nava to beat Goffin. Goffin's got a pretty good history here at Monte Carlo. And honestly, guys, I can't remember who Goffin beat in the first. Oh, he beat Buse. And I was like, wow, that is a great win because I thought Buse was going to be able to come out here. And I don't know, whoever he was going to play, I thought he was going to win a few rounds. But Goffin takes care of him in 3 sets, then plays another 3-setter, and Nava able to win. Obviously, that Nava serve, kind of a big difference maker. When you're in those big points, it's so nice to have a serve like that can kind of get you out of the point with one big swing. Now, Emilio Nava, I used to talk about, he doesn't move great on the clay, but his record on the clay isn't bad. So last year he was 45-19 on the clay, 8-9 in 2024, 12-8 the year before that. So playing over 60 matches on the clay courts last year. I mean, you definitely have a lot of experience. You have a lot of comfort on this surface. I get it for Nava. He probably wasn't playing at the Masters Series level. But I think he's going to have something to say about this match here against Lehecka. Lehecka, on the other hand, 5-5 last year on the clay, 4-1 the year before, 10-8 the year before that. So not great from Lehecka. Hasn't had an amazing showing on the clay court surfaces. And that doesn't surprise me. I feel like his game is more suited for a faster court, like a hard court, like an indoor hard court. So I'm going to pick Lehecka. I'm kind of doing some of these on the fly. I'm looking at the stats, and I keep going back and forth here because Emilio Nava is a great player, but let's look at some of his losses. Loses to Feria in the Sao Paulo Challenger. Loses to Mahach in 3 sets, 6-1 in the third. Loses to Mo in the Phoenix Challenger. Loses to Nuno Borges in the Indian Wells. Loses to Cerundolo in the Chile Open 6-1, 6-1. So when he has to come up against some of these top guys. Guys that can kind of put the serve back in play and force you to play a few more points. He tends to struggle, but I feel like his serve's going to be able to help him here a little bit more than we think. So I think he's going to be able to get a set. I don't know if he can win the match. I'm going to go with Lehecka to advance in 3 sets over Emilio Nava. Next match is Monfils against Bublik. This is going to be a round of 32 match, which we will discuss here since Monfils was able to move on today in the first round. Looking at that first round match against Griekspoor, Griekspoor had a great start, came out, went up a break. He looked like he was dominating, and then throws in 3 double faults to get broken right back. It was it was very nervy from Griekspoor, and I'm kind of curious, maybe after getting to that Dubai final, which unfortunately he had to retire due to an injury, but maybe he's putting a lot more pressure on himself. It is unfortunate that he was injured because I felt like he really grooved himself. He was playing very good tennis, just as good a tennis, honestly, as Medvedev was. And we look at what Medvedev was able to do, making it to the finals of Indian Wells. I feel like Griekspoor could have done the same thing. He could have gotten his confidence going. And here, it just looks like we see a guy with, his confidence zapped away from him. And that really does stink, especially since he was really starting to groove himself into his game in Dubai. So Griekspoor was able to sneak out the first set. And you kind of think, okay, maybe he's going to loosen up a little bit and start to play a little bit freer. But the misses start to creep in, a lot of double faults, a lot of errors, and Monfils is able to win the second set 6-1. And then Monfils is able to break early in the first set, gets another break, goes up a double break, in the third set. And then Greeks were able to fight back from 5-2, get it to 5-4. Monfils able to hold and win there. But I don't know, Griekspoor just didn't look 100% to me in that third set. He was kind of heavy breathing. I don't really know if there was something wrong with him. Maybe he was sick. What was going on there? But he didn't look 100%. And he was making a concerted effort to shorten the points. You saw him, he's coming into net a little bit more. Now, obviously, Griekspoor has an all-around game, so he's able to do that. But I was a little bit concerned with how quickly he was trying to play some of these points and win them, especially against a guy like Monfils, where, yes, Monfils gets a lot of balls back, but Griekspoor's got better. He's got better groundies, in my opinion, to dictate and move Monfils around, hit behind him, even in longer rallies, and kind of wear him down. And unfortunately, just not able to do that. Monfils able to get the win here. Obviously, Monfils with the crowd behind him, so that's an awesome thing to have. And guys, what are we gonna do without Gael Monfils next year? I mean, he is just such an entertainer. So many fun shots that he has, even the ones that he misses that he tries to go for. You just think wow, he's having a blast out there. So I don't know what we're gonna do without him next year. We'll have to. Hopefully, there will be somebody else that'll rise to the occasion as being the entertainer. Now Monfils takes on Bublik, and their head-to-head is 2-1 for Monfils. Let's go through their 3 meetings here. 2020, they met at the French Open in the first round. Bublik able to beat and upset Monfils 6-4, 7-5, 3-6, 6-3. Pretty impressive win there for a younger Bublik. Then they met in the Australian Open, and Monfils was able to beat Bublik 6-1, 6-0, 6-4. And their last meeting was in 2023 at the City Open in Washington, D.C., where Monfils won 6-3, 6-4 in the second round. I feel like I keep seeing this pattern. Monfils getting a nice first round win, might be a 3-setter, might be a tough straight setter, and then he struggles in the next round, kind of pushes the person in the next round. So we saw he beat Jumer in the first round of Acapulco, 6-4, 7-6. That was a really tough back and forth match. Jumer had chances to win that second set, And then Monfils goes on, loses to Vacherot, who's a very solid, steady player, likes to come to net too, can take time away from you. Indian Wells, he beats the qualifier Galarno from Canada, 6-3, 6-4. And that was a weird match too, because Galarno was up a break, I believe, in the first set. And then Monfils able to kind of fight back from that match. And then he loses to Felix Auger-Aliassime in 3 sets, 6-7, 6-3, 6-4. Now we see that he just beat Greek Sport in 3 sets. This was a 2-hour and 15 match. So I kind of feel like Bublik's going to win this one. I kind of feel like Bublik is probably a little bit grateful to see Monfils, who he knows he can outlast, than to see Greek Sport, who has a... God, I don't even know if I want to say higher ceiling, because obviously Monfils at his best is unreal, but like I think Greek Sport has a higher chance of pushing Bublik than Monfils does. Bublik coming off a tough second round loss in Miami to Berrettini, 6-4, 6-4. Lost in the third round of Indian Wells to Hijikata. Lost to Greek Sport in Dubai. So Bublik hasn't been playing a lot. And we talked about how we expected regression from Alexander Bublik after the year that he had last year. 23-6 on the clay, 48-24 overall last year. He's on the surface now, though, that he's had his success. This is kind of where Bublik got that breakout moment, beating Draper at the French Open in an upset. Maybe now, hindsight right now, maybe it's not an upset. But Bublik getting a nice win there. And I feel like after that win, he started to kind of take himself a little bit more serious. He started to use his power a little bit more, rather than just hitting like 100 drop shots every match, or like he would get down a break and there would be no fight to get back and level the match. He would just start slapping winners left and right. If they go in, great. If they don't, whatever. So we are seeing a little bit of regression from Bublik this year. But I think he still is going to find some success on the clay. And I think this draw is looking pretty good for him here. I kind of see Tabilo getting out to that round of 16 match. We'll talk about that one. We'll talk about that in a second. Does have a tough draw, obviously, in Alcaraz's quarter. But he can give Alcaraz a run for his money here in Monte Carlo. So I'm going to pick Bublik to advance here. I think it's going to be... I'm going to say 3 sets. I have a weird feeling that Monfils is going to win a set. Similar to that Felix match, Monfils is going to have the crowd. The place is going to be packed. It's going to be a crazy environment. And Bublik's going to have to adjust to that, but I think he can. He's got the serve. He's got the forehand. He's got the volleys and the drop shots. He's going to make Monfils move. I'm going to pick Bublik to advance in 3 sets. Here's a look at Alcaraz's quarter with our picks. I'll give you the clip notes on the Baez and Etcheverry matches. We did talk about those a little bit more in depth in our draw reaction and prediction video. So if you want a little bit more of a breakdown, go ahead and tune into that. Baez and Wawrinka. I just feel like Baez is the steadier player. He's going to be the solid clay court player. I'm scared, though, like the Monfils match against Greek Sport, Stan is going to have the crowd with him, so that definitely counts for something. This is a small stadium, and it sounds really loud, so this could be a dangerous match for Baez, but I think he's going to be able to get through, whether it's in 2 tough sets or 3 sets. I got to go with Baez. I got to go with the guy that has been a little bit more consistent on the clay this year than Stan. Obviously, we know what Stan can do on the clay. I am not doubting him for that. But right now, I think Baez is the more consistent player, so I'm going to pick him to get through to the round of 32. Etcheverry and Dimitrov, I know Dimitrov's made some runs here in this tournament, but I like the way that Etcheverry is playing. I like the fact that he played over in Houston, got a little bit of confidence there. didn't have the result that he wanted, losing in the quarterfinals to Tommy Paul. We thought that match was going to be a little bit different, but he's able to get a couple matches under his belt, get comfortable, and now he's coming over with those matches to play Dimitrov, who did play. It was like a exhibition, I believe, or something that they had. I think he was in that with like Felix and Rublev. So maybe he's had a little bit of practice as well in the match play scenarios, but I gotta go with Etcheverry. I love the way he's playing clay court tennis. He's got a great record on the clay. I think he's only got a few losses. He won Rio. He's got some clay court prowess behind him. It's gonna be a tough match for Dimitrov to win. Obviously, if Grigor's able to step on his forehand, step on his backhand, and really be the aggressor, he can take this match. But I think Etcheverry is going to be too much with the defense. So I'm going to go with Etcheverry to advance in straight sets for this one as well. Now, looking at the quarter overall, guys, I mean, I kind of like Tabilo to get out and play Bublik, and I think that might be a tricky match. I can't wait to see how Tabilo plays, because I think he's got a lot of confidence with the way that he's been playing, how he did in the South American clay court swing. He did pretty well. Etcheverry is a very similar thing. I was a little bit depressed that he did lose Tommy Paul, so he didn't look great in that match. Tommy Paul's a good clay quarter, but not a great clay quarter. So I'm a little bit concerned that whether Etcheverry is going to be able to kind of make it in these bigger tournaments and make some noise here. But he does have a 500 win in Rio under his belt. Ethan Quinn, awesome for him to get into this main draw. If he can advance, I think that's a huge plus, especially losing to Comesana in the last round of qualifying you're the number one seeded qualifier, but getting the opportunity to be the lucky loser and take Francis Tiafoe's place, he's got a chance there. Right now, guys, I don't see anyone standing in the way of Carlos Alcaraz here in this quarter. He's going to get out to the semifinals. I would be shocked if one of these guys is able to beat him, but we'll have to see. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. Let's look at Musetti's part of the draw. First matchup, we have Vacherot taking on Cerundolo, and this is Juan Manuel Cerundolo, who was able to come out of qualifying, beating Nice 6-3, 6-3, and Martinez 6-2, 2-6, 6-3. And this is going to be a tricky match, I think, for Vacherot. Cerundolo loves the clay. We know that. He's played almost his entire career on the clay courts. He's had almost all of his success on the clay courts. 39-19 last year, 46-25 the year before that. He's 8-5 this year on the clay. I think he's going to give Vacherot some problems, especially we're looking at this is Vacherot's first clay court match. 24-12 last year, 15-9 the year before that. So not too bad from Vacherot on the clay. But I think it's always tough, one, when you're playing, this is your first match out there. But two, now you're playing a guy that's played on these courts already, that's played competitive matches on these courts, probably has a little bit of that comfort on these courts, and he's a experienced clay court player. So I think a lot of that is weighing towards Cerundolo for me. No head-to-head here between these two guys. I do have some concern, obviously. I think Vacherot is the better player, in my opinion. I think he's going to be able to take care of this. I am concerned, though, picking him against a guy with the clay court prowess of Juan Manuel Cerundolo. But seeing that Martinez match, that was kind of like a little bit of a back and forth type thing, a grinded out type match. Martinez isn't playing great tennis, so I don't know how much credit I want to give Cerundolo for getting through a match like that. Vacherot's coming off a tough third round loss to Arthur Fils, 6-4, 6-7, 6-4 in Miami, and he was able to beat Navoni and Berrettini to get out to the fourth round. Vacherot's not playing bad tennis. It's just we haven't seen, that success. He makes it out. He always goes a couple of rounds, always goes a few rounds, and then is losing to some of these stronger guys. But we haven't seen that Vacherot success that we saw in Shanghai last year, where he was able to win the Master Series over Rinderknecht, beating Djokovic, beating Holger Rune, beating Griekspoor, beating Bublik and Mahatch. What a run that was. We're waiting to kind of see that Vacherot again. But I think he's going to be able to get through this match. I think it's going to be a three-setter. I'm going to pick Vacherot to get through here, and Musetti better watch out, because I think Vacherot having a match under his belt too, and especially if it's a three-setter over a tough clay quarter, that's going to spell danger for Musetti if he's not ready to go. So give me Vacherot in 3. Next match, we have Cobolli taking on Comesana, and I like this match for Cobolli. Head-to-head, these guys haven't met before. Comesana coming out of the qualifiers, beating Arnaldi 6-2, 6-1, and Ethan Quinn 7-5, 6-2. I was a little bit iffy on that Ethan Quinn match. I thought maybe Quinn would be able to eke that one out a little bit over Comesana, but Comesana just being too tough of a clay quarter in that match. Cobolli coming off a tough straight set loss to Collignon in Miami. A little bit disappointing for him. We remember he was struggling up until Acapulco. Honestly, up until Delray Beach, because he was able to make the semis there, losing to Korda. And really just turns it on in Acapulco, beating Pacheco Mendez, Svrchina, Wu, Kekmanovic, and Tiafoe. In it, the Tiafoe match, in very impressive fashion, just striking the forehand. He looks really good, playing with a lot of confidence. But then he loses to Tiafoe at Indian Wells, so not sure how much confidence is shot from that one. But at the Indian Wells match, Cobolli comes out and he's all like wrapped up. The arm is wrapped, the knee is wrapped. You could tell his body was feeling it from the week before in Acapulco. Now, let's not forget last year, Cobolli had a decent clay court run, 15-6. He gets out to, I can't remember if it was third or fourth round of the French Open and loses to Zverev. And that was a straight set match. I remember how much I was really following Cobolli. I really love the way that he plays, and I thought, he was going to really push Zverev, and it was just very straightforward. There were a lot of nerves to me from Cobolli in that match, trying to prove himself to be on an equal level of a guy like Zverev. I thought he was going to give him a lot tougher of a match than a straight setter, but he wasn't able to. Cobolli now back on the courts that he loves, playing on the clay. Hasn't played a match yet on the clay, so that is a little bit concerning. Comesana's played 8 matches. He's 4-4 on the clay this year. 18-13 last year, 31-21 the year before. Cobolli, as we mentioned, 15-6 in 2025 and 10-9 in 2024. I'm going to pick Cobolli to win this match. It wouldn't surprise me if Comesana won it, but I gotta go. I just don't trust the consistency of Comesana. We watched him in the Chile Open, where he struggled against Martinez, a guy that he had a decent head-to-head against, and then a guy that he's never lost a set to in Pellegrino, he loses in 3 sets. And the one thing that we noted in that match was how he was just making too many errors instead of just grinding. And I wasn't able to watch his match against Ethan Quinn, so I'm curious how that match went. If maybe he went back with his coaches and they worked more on him just grinding out some of these longer points, because that's what Comesana's about for me. Like, that's what I remember last year from Comesana. Yeah, he's got some of those big shots, but I felt like he was pulling the trigger way too fast in the Martinez and Pellegrino matches. And then he goes on to the hard courts where he's just outmatched by Korda. He was able to get up a break a couple of times. That match was really weird. Korda just a little bit nervous, I think, in the first round, but once Korda got going, he just blew past Comesana. And then a first round loss to Tabilo in Miami. So I'm gonna go with Cobolli to win this one. I think it's gonna be 3 sets, just because it's Cobolli's first match. We might have a little bit of nerves coming out there. He's the seeded guy. Comesana's already played a couple of matches, so he's got a little bit more comfort on the courts. But give me Cobolli in straights. Next match is a round of 32 match. Cam Norrie taking on Alex DeMinaur. And if you remember, guys, this is a rematch of the Indian Wells third round, where Norrie was able to win 6-4, 6-4. Pretty convincing. I can't remember if we picked that one or not, but I remember talking about how Norrie was going to give DeMinaur some issues there. Talking about that Norrie and Kecmanovic match, an extremely impressive win for Norrie. We talked about just being able to neutralize the power of Kecmanovic, especially on the clay. Norrie was able to do a pretty good job at that. Winning the first set 6-2, it looked like everything was going to go pretty swimmingly for him, but Kecmanovic able to come back and take the next set 4-6, 6-4 for him. And they get to a breaker, and honestly, you see like that consistency and guile of Cam Norrie able to prevail in a breaker where he blanks Kecmanovic 7-0 in the breaker. So great win for Cam Norrie to advance and move into the round of 32. He takes on Alex DeMinaur, and DeMinaur coming off a tough Indian Wells and Miami swing, losing to Cam Norrie 6-4, 6-4 at Indian Wells third round, and losing to Tsitsipas in the second round 6-3, 7-6. Unfortunately, he played two guys that I believe both of them have a decent head-to-head against him. I mean, Norrie's now sitting at 3-2, and I think Tsitsipas was like 7-1 or 8, something crazy like that. Norrie, on the other hand, had a good Indian Wells showing, getting to the quarterfinals, losing to Carlos Alcaraz, and losing in the first round of Miami to Mickelson in 3 sets. A really tough match there. He's playing decent tennis. I like what we see from Norrie. Cam Norrie 1-0 right now on the clay with that one win. 14-7 last year, 8-8 the year before. DeMinaur hasn't played a match on clay, so this will be his first match here. Expect maybe a little bit of cobwebs there for him. 10-5 last year and 10-5 the year before. Talk about consistency. Again, you get DeMinaur, he comes in as a higher seed, so he's going to play, he's going to get his bye, he's going to play an unseeded guy first, then he'll play maybe like a number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 guy. So it's nice for him to be able to get a few wins there. This, to me, is a really tricky match. I love the idea of the revenge factor. I think that's going to play in here for DeMinaur. I definitely think that he's a little bit miffed by that loss to Cam Norrie. Let's take a look at how DeMinaur has done here at Monte Carlo. Last year was a semifinal appearance. 2024 was a quarterfinal appearance. 2023 was a second-round loss, and 2022 was a second-round loss. Last year, he was able to beat Mahach, Medvedev, Dimitrov 6-0, 6-0. You guys remember that match. And then lost in a tough 3-setter to Musetti. So he has pretty good success. 8-6 here in Monte Carlo. He's had pretty good success here on the clay in Monte Carlo. Let's take a look at how Norrie has done here. 2-5 on the clay in Monte Carlo. Let me see. That does not include today's match? So 3-5. Today was the first time he's won a match in Monte Carlo since 2019. So can we trust him to win a second one? I don't know. I'm gonna go with DeMinaur here to win this match. I love the revenge factor. I love that he plays well on this surface. I think he's gonna take Norrie out. I feel like it's gonna be a little bit shaky at first. So it's probably gonna be like a tight, tough first set, and then DeMinaur is going to be able to get like a 6-3, 6-2 set in the second set. So give me DeMinaur to win in straight sets. And here's what got Musetti's quarter of the draw. I really think Musetti's got to be careful with Vacherot. I think that could be a very tricky match, especially since we haven't seen the best of Musetti since the Australian Open. I expect him to find some comfort here on the clay. Obviously, this is his better surface, so I expect him to be a little bit more comfortable on once he gets out here. He did have a nice showing last year in Monte Carlo. Darderi, I kind of like Darderi to get out there against Merigin or Mensik. What a tough loss for Darderi against Trunzoliti. A tournament that he's expected to win, and he loses that. He watches Hadar win the tournament. Definitely a missed opportunity there for Luciano Darderi. I don't know, if Musetti gets out there and plays Darderi, I kind of feel like Darderi is playing the better clay court tennis right now. But it's like that big brother, little brother scenario where I just feel like he's gonna have that pressure of beating Musetti, the top ranked Italian guy, and I don't know. I kind of like Musetti to get through that, and beware of that though, guys. Like if Musetti beats Darderi, don't think of that as like, oh wow, that's like a amazing clay court win. For me, it's more of like a mental block for Darderi not being able to get over the hump and beat a guy like Musetti. If he's able to do it, good on him. Then on the other hand, we have Cobolli and blocks. I would love to see blocks, especially after what we saw from Landaluce in Miami. I would love to see blocks get out of here, maybe play like Musetti in the quarterfinals. That would be awesome because I could see this side of the draw, this round of 64 side with Cobolli and all these guys. I could see this kind of blown up a little bit, with maybe like Norrie beats DeMinaur. And then you get Comesana beats Cobolli, so you get no seeds coming out here. It might be something nice for Musetti. He gets a few nice matches. His hardest match might be against Vacherot. So we'll see how this goes. But I like Musetti to advance out of this quarter if he is playing his best clay court tennis. I think he easily gets through it. Something tells me he's not going to be at his best, so a few of these matches are going to be a little bit tricky, but I still like him to advance out of this quarter to play Carlos in the semis. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. Here's a look at Zverev's quarter. Our next match is Bautista Agut against Berrettini. Head-to-head is 4-1 for Berrettini. Let's take a look at some of these matches here. They haven't played since 2021, so not sure how much we can weigh into that. Berrettini's won their two matches on clay without losing a set, beating Bautista Agut in Gstaad in 2018, 7-6, 6-4, and in Munich in 2019, 6-4, 6-2. Last beating was in 2021 in ATP Cup in Melbourne. Berrettini was able to win that 6-3, 7-5. So he's got some confidence definitely going up against Bautista Agut. We talked about how Bautista Agut not playing the best of tennis here. He got the lucky loser spot here coming out. I don't remember who Berrettini was playing originally, but Bautista Agut got the lucky loser spot here, losing to Shevchenko in the qualifiers. Beat Bonzi 6-4, 6-3, and Bonzi playing pretty good tennis, so nice win for Bautista Agut there. He's got some clay court prowess behind him there, of course, 6-8 last year, 10-7 the year before, though, so not too bad. Loses to Shevchenko 7-6, 7-6. Nice win for Shevchenko, though, to come through in that qualifier. Berrettini, on the other hand, sitting at 3-4 right now on the clay, 4-3 last year, 15-1 the year before. He was able to he lost to Ignacio Buse in Marrakesh 7-6, 6-7, 6-4. Really tough fought match, but I like the fact that Berrettini has 7 matches on the clay already. He's got a little bit of comfort there. There's not really going to be an issue with the movement or finding the forehand there. I thought he was hitting really well against Buse. Buse just a little bit too strong on the day. So I'm going to pick Berrettini to come out here. He's got the head-to-head. He's played some matches on the clay. Bautista Agut is just not looking the best right now, the strongest. So I think even at his best, it would be a tough match for him to win. So I'm going to go with Berrettini to win. Give me Berrettini in straight sets. Our next match is Christian Garin against Matteo Arnaldi. And we talked a little bit about Arnaldi coming back from injury. Didn't really look great against Mackenzie McDonald, Indian Wells. Then lost a tough one to Shevchenko in 3 sets. Gets out to Bucharest. We talked about how the clay is a little bit more of a familiar surface for him. But loses first round to Molcan. Molcan making a nice run to the semifinal. So that ends up not being a terrible loss for Arnaldi. I mean, 6-3, 6-1 is kind of bad. Then gets to Monte Carlo in the qualifiers. Beats Vitka Privo, who's a solid clay quarter, beats him in 3 sets. That's a nice win. And loses to Muller in 3 sets. Gets a lucky loser spot here. And I kind of like what we're seeing from Arnaldi now. Garin, on the other hand, got a qualifier spot, beating De Jong in 3 sets and Basilashvili in straights. Head-to-head here is 1-0 for Arnaldi. Arnaldi able to beat Garin in 2023 in 3 sets, 2-6, 6-4, 6-3. That was on indoor hard court in Davis Cup. Not really much more I can say about this one. Arnaldi, 7-6 last year on the clay, 10-9 the year before, 23-7 in 2023. Garin, a little bit more experience on the clay, 39-13 on the clay last year, 13-14 the year before, and 18-12 in 2023. He's sitting at 3-2 this year. Arnaldi's sitting at 1-2 this year. I feel like Arnaldi's getting better and better, especially coming back from the injury. You got to get honed in your matches and everything and feel that experience a little bit better. I think Arnaldi's a higher level guy. If he can bring his best tennis or even his A- tennis, I think he's going to be able to get through this match. So give me Arnaldi to advance. I'm going to say he's going to win in 3 sets. Here's a look at Zverev's quarter of the draw. And honestly, Medvedev's got to be careful with that Berrettini match. I could see that being an upset there. We got to be really careful of that one. The Fonseca-Kachanov rematch would be awesome to see. Remember Kachanov blowing a lead, and I think he had match points against Fonseca at Indian Wells, losing that match. So he's definitely going to want to get some revenge in that one. Bergs and Rublev, maybe it's time for Zizou Bergs to get that upset and start his year, or at least his clay season, off on the right foot. He hasn't been doing so well on the hard courts. And then Arnaldi and Zverev, again, we talked about Arnaldi coming back from the injury. If he's able to put in a nice match against Zverev, maybe that gives him some confidence going into the clay season. Overall, though, guys, I like Zverev to get through this quarter here and advance to the semis. But we will see. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. And here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw. First match we're going to look at is Cilic against Shevchenko. Shevchenko coming through the qualifiers, beating Pellegrino 6-0 and retired. And then in the final round, beating Bautista Agut 7-6, 7-6. That's a great win for Shevchenko to get that confidence going a little bit. He did play in Bucharest last week, beating Turkanu in straight sets, and then losing to Bodog van de Zandschulp in straights. And Bodog playing very good tennis. We were talking about him making the semifinals, losing to Navoni, barely losing to Navoni, who ended up winning the whole tournament. So not a bad loss for Shevchenko. 6-1's a little bit of a bad set. Marin Cilic, not the greatest on the clay. I think this is going to be really interesting to see how he does here on the clay, because I feel like he's having a little bit of a resurgence this year. Coming off that Miami third round appearance, beating Popyrin, beating Nakashima in 3 sets, losing in 3 sets to Zverev. Tough 3-setter to Zverev. Cilic was 11-9 last year on the clay, 0-1 the year before, 0-1 in 2023. Shevchenko 3-1 right now on the clay, 19-16 in 2025, 6-12 in 2024, 19-13 in 2023. Both these guys are kind of surviving, not really thriving on the clay. So I kind of want to go with Cilic. I know this is his first clay court match, so it's kind of silly for me to do that. But I like the confidence that he has. I feel like this is going to be a tough 3-setter, and I think I trust the Cilic serve and the Cilic forehand to really, and the Cilic return to really be the one that takes advantage and kind of pushes Shevchenko around. I feel like I've been picking Shevchenko too many times and just getting burned, like in that Bodog match, like in the Humbert match in Miami. So I'm going to pick Cilic here to advance. I think he's going to win in 3 sets. Next match is Moutet and Muller. Head-to-head here is tied at 2-2, with their most recent match coming in 2025 at the City Open in Washington. Moutet able to beat Muller 6-0, 6-1. That's a little bit of a lopsided affair, especially for a head-to-head that is now tied up. This is going to be a tricky one, and also the rest of their head-to-heads came before 2020, so it doesn't really to me, there isn't really much weight. They played 2 matches on clay. They split those, both in 2017. So I'm not really much that we can kind of pull from there. Muller, in my opinion, playing pretty good tennis. Gets out to the Marrakesh quarterfinals, has to retire to Hadar. Says he was feeling a little bit ill, but you wonder if maybe he felt a little bit fatigued and wanted to save himself. Knew that he had these qualifiers the next day in Marrakesh, so very interesting. Probably maybe wanted to save the body or refocus. Plays Choinsky, so retires against Hadar in Marrakesh on April 3rd. Comes in April 4th to Monte Carlo, plays Choinsky and wins 7-6, 6-3, then beats Arnaldi 6-1, 6-7, 6-4 in 3 tough sets. Pretty nice showing there for Muller, who moves 6-2 on the clay. And guys, I feel like we gotta look out for some of these matches the where the player might have like the qualifiers the next week and they're playing it at 250, because what was Mueller going to do if he made the semis? I'm not really sure. Or if he made the finals. Does he get... They're not going to delay the qualifiers for him, so then he just has to give up playing in Monte Carlo. That's kind of interesting. Like, some of these guys are, you play Marrakesh, you get a few matches under your belt, you go down a set to Hadar, and you're basically like, well, this is it. I got Monte Carlo tomorrow. I'm not sure how they handle those situations, or if there's a way to get maybe a delayed match or something like that. But I think it's hard with the timing of everything. Monte Carlo is only a week, so there's only so much time that they can delay a qualifier match for him. Moutet, on the other hand, sitting at 1-1 on the clay. He was 10-9 last year and 22-15 the year before that. He lost to Trungelliti, the Cinderella of Marrakesh, who made it out to the finals, losing to Hadar in the finals. Moutet looked okay. I felt like he should have won that match. He was up big in that first set, kind of like toying with Trungelliti, and then got a little bit too laxed, tried to play a little bit over aggressive. Trungelliti got back into the match and was able to pull that one out in 3 sets. This is a tough one for me, especially considering that they played last year and it was 0-1 for Mueller, because I'm kind of leaning towards Mueller to win this match. Mueller 11-10 last year, 20-12 in 2024. I think he's playing good clay court tennis. I like the way that he's playing. I think he's playing aggressive, and he's played a lot more than Moutet. And he's played on this surface, has a little bit of comfort. That 3-setter with Arnaldi, maybe Arnaldi's playing a little bit better, maybe Mueller's playing a little bit worse. So that's a little bit questionable for me. I mean, straight sets over Kopriva, straight sets over China. Tough loss to Hadar. I'm going to pick Moutet. And honestly, guys, if Moutet doesn't win this match, then we might have to put him in the no pick on the clay again. I think Mueller's playing the better tennis, but I kind of like Moutet to be the stronger player. I love the drop shots that he has. I love the heavy spin on the forehand. So I'm going to pick Moutet to win this match. He's going to win it. I think it's going to be 3 sets no matter what. So give me Moutet in 3. Next match is going to be a round of 32 match. We have Humbert taking on Sinner, and Humbert able to get through Kwame, the wild card, into this tournament. Humbert wins 6-3, 7-5, and this was a good match. I mean, just a tricky matchup for Kwame. You got the Humbert lefty forehand going into that Kwame backhand. The Kwame backhand is not that strong, and Humbert just able to take advantage of that. Kwame, a few too many unforced errors throughout that match. A little bit closer in the second set. Just overall a very tough matchup, I think, for Kwame. He would have had a little bit more success against a guy that, he could start to dictate a little bit more on the forehand side. Honestly, though, we talked about in our preview of that match, I was unsure of how Kwame would look on the clay. He didn't look too bad. I thought he moved pretty well. I thought he was sliding out pretty well. Just the backhand's a little bit weaker for him. So once players kind of start to target that, it makes the match a lot harder for him to win. Humbert now gets out up against Sinner. And guys, sorry, I'm watching the Berrettini Paul match, and this has been an unbelievable final. Tommy Paul you know, getting hold of the match really quickly, just being the offensive player, taking it to Berrettini, which is exactly what we thought was going to happen. He does that for a set, then Berrettini just like becoming a wall, getting a few more errors from Paul in the second set, and Berrettini serving for the match. But you could see the nerves, and we talked about that. I said, guys, I felt like the nerves were really gonna play in as a factor here against Tommy Paul if Berrettini was serving for it, and he couldn't put a ball in. He was just extremely nervous here. So now he's at advantage Berrettini here at down 5-6. Tommy Paul trying to break to get the win here, so really tough match. But let's take a look at the head-to-head for Sinner and Humbert. Sitting at 1-1 here. Sinner winning their last matchup in 2021 in Rome, 6-2, 6-4, first round of Rome, that's on the clay. And Humbert getting a nice win against him in the Next Gen Finals way back when in 2019, 4-3, 3-4, 4-2, 4-2. Remember, those are the short sets for the Next Gen Finals. Sinner this will be his first clay court match. He is 11-2 on the clay last year, 11-2 on the clay the year before. Pretty consistent. He is very solid on the clay. Remember, he did not have the he did not play Monte Carlo last year, so he's got a lot of. If he is able to close the gap here against Carlos, it's going to be a very tight race here that could be decided with the French Open champion. Extremely interesting and fun stuff there. Humbert, on the other hand, not a great clay quarter. 1-0 after his win over Kwame. 2-5 last year. 5-7 the year before. We talked about how we didn't think he was a very strong clay quarter, but he would be strong enough to get through Kwame. He's not going to be strong enough to get through Sinner. This is going to be a straight set win for Sinner. Probably 2-2. Good match for Sinner to get his feet wet on the clay surface and get some confidence rolling. So I'm going to pick Sinner. He's going to advance in straight sets. Here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw with our picks. And guys, unbelievable match in Houston. Tommy Paul wins in 3 sets, saving 3 match points. Just a tough match for Berrettini. We don't do a recap video for the finals and the matches, but maybe we should. Just really tough for Berrettini, and I'm watching it right now, and you could tell he all the emotions just to be that close. To be 1 or 2 shots away from taking your first ATP title. But on the other hand, you have Tommy Paul with that tough loss to Arthur Fils in Miami, thinking about that match, having chances, almost blowing it against Francis Tiafoe, able to come back and win that match, and now able to come back and win this match here. Just incredible stuff from Tommy Paul. I can't wait to see what he's going to do on the clay courts. So definitely look out for that. But guys, if you haven't watched it, definitely put on the last set of this Houston Open final, and you can just watch that. Really spectacular tennis from both guys, and good tennis from Tommy Paul. But anyways, let's go look at Sinner's quarter of the draw here. I like Sinner to advance out of this round, or out of this quarter, and get to the semifinals. Maybe if Casper Ruud is on, maybe he can pose a little bit. Maybe Cerundolo, but Sinner's just a little bit too strong for all these guys, where you're really going to have to get a top-notch effort, an A+ match from these guys for them to even bug Sinner, even take a set off of him. So I would expect Sinner to advance here. Would not be surprised, you see Felix over there in the round of 32. Would not be surprised if that Shevchenko-Cilic match winner took out Felix there. I like Ruud to kind of get through to the quarterfinals to play Sinner. And then Cerundolo will be my hatch, in my opinion. So we'll see how this all shakes out here in the few days to come. But let me know what you guys think. Definitely share your picks in the comments. Here's a look at our first round records. Only 4 matches today for day 2, so we ended up going 3-1. We'll have a lot more first round matches tomorrow. We'll see how we do and get back to this. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We'll have daily videos out every single day, getting our picks for Monte Carlo and recapping the matches that happened. Hopefully, I'll be able to give you guys some breakdown and get some eyes on all of these matches. Super excited for the clay season, guys. Can't wait, and I'll see you guys in the next video.